How about that leak of the Supreme Court draft opinion that happened last night, and it went absolutely bonkers? Why did that happen, do you suppose? Is there some inner reason why that did happen to come into the ownership of the Politico just in time for the Ohio voting, in advance of the midterm elections? And what does it mean? Well, last night on Twitter, Mike Davis and I got together. He's with the Article 3 Project. He's also a former chief counsel for nominations for the, just the U.S. Senate Committee on the Judiciary. What a piker. Law clerk for Justice Gorsuch. And he's with us right now on KTTH. And it's a pleasure to be able to speak with you and get your input on what the heck happened with this leak and to get your take on why. How are you?
I'm doing well, and thank you for having me.
Well, so you saw this. You were on Twitter last night. You saw the whole thing play out right in front of you. What happened?
Yeah, this was shocking, shameful, and likely illegal, what happens here. I think this is unprecedented. I can't think of another instance where a full majority opinion from the Supreme Court, a draft majority opinion, leaked out like this 2 months earlier than it should have. And it's very clear that someone is leaking this opinion to try to influence justices' votes on this Dobbs case to overturn Roe versus Wade and Casey. And if that's the case, we're looking at potential obstruction of justice charges against whoever did this. Each of the each of the 9 Supreme Court justices generally has 4 law clerks. Sometimes they have 5, but it's generally 4 law clerks, and they have 3 administrative assistants. And then there are a limited number of other people who would have access to these draft opinions. And it is just shocking that this leaked out. So the Chief Justice put out a statement today calling on the Marshal of the Supreme Court, an officer of the Supreme Court, to look into this. The officer runs the Supreme Court police. They have their own 200-officer police force. They can also call in the U.S. Marshals Service if they need to, or other federal agents. They could deputize to come in and help with this. But they are almost certainly going to get to the bottom of this. They're going to probably have to interview each one of these law clerks and each one of these administrative assistants for all 9 justices and get them under oath and figure out what happens here. And whoever did this will be fired from their clerkship. They'll probably be disbarred, and they might be prosecuted.
So we're talking about a universe of maybe 50 people, 60 people at the most. Will they all be polyed?
They could be polygraphs. That's certainly possible. I know that if the Supreme Court police wanted to deputize the Marshals Service, the U.S. Marshals Service from the Department of Justice, they can certainly do polygraphs. That's certainly possible.
So I was listening to Mike Lee, who also was a Supreme Court clerk, as were you, and he talked about the ability for someone to get their hands on the documents and the sort of the order of operations for what happens after a document which is rarely printed, is printed, because that's a copy, that's a photograph or scan of the decision. That is not a live thing. What kind of security is at the Supreme Court to prevent something like this from happening?
Well, you're supposed to be dealing with the youngest, smartest young lawyers and law grads in the country, and they have ethical obligations as young lawyers or as future lawyers. They have agreements with the Supreme Court. There are federal statutes that prevent the misuse of federal property. There are federal statutes that prevent obstruction of justice. The Supreme Court has an intranet system that's not connected to the internet when it comes to circulating drafts like this to prevent hacks and leaks like this. So this is, like you said, I saw the document with Politico, and it was clearly printed and scanned to Politico. So they didn't just send a PDF to Politico. And man, this leak is bad in a lot of ways. Number one is it really hurts the judicial independence of the Supreme Court. It puts sitting justices in grave danger because people know who's voting which way and who's up for grabs. And so you put them in danger by doing this. They have protection, but it still puts them in danger. They're getting death threats right now in front of the Supreme Court and otherwise. And it's just, frankly, this is counterproductive. Whatever, I presume that this is some, left-wing activist, employee, law clerk who did this because they were upset with how the court's going to rule in Dobbs and overturn Roe and Casey. And they thought that, maybe one of two things. They thought that they can influence a justice to change their vote by leaking this, or they just say, to hell with it, we're going to burn down the whole place if they're going to overturn this. It's really stupid because you're going to have the opposite effect. You're going to have justices. There's no way in heck that they're going to not go forward with this majority opinion after this happens. They have to, to protect the institution of the court, and it's going to make the court stronger. It's going to be it's going to do short-term damage to the court, but you're going to see the justices rally around the Chief Justice and his call to investigate this and figure out who did this and make sure this never happens again.
Is political extortion an actual crime?
It's not political extortion. That's the problem. It's that you're using it's an obstruction of justice where you're using illegal, improper means to improperly influence the outcome of a pending case. That violates the due process rights of the parties before the court, and that's obstruction of justice when you do that.
Mike Davis is with the Article 3 Project. He's the former chief counsel for nominations with the U.S. Senate Committee on the Judiciary. He's a law clerk, and he was a law clerk for Justice Gorsuch. Now, I have no comfort in Chief Justice Roberts, not changing his mind. That's a double negative. I think he could very well do that because of the reaction out in front of the U.S. Supreme Court. As it was, he changed his mind, it's believed, to rewrite Obamacare to save it because there was so much political blowback. Do you have any belief that he would preserve this particular decision, this opinion, or do you think he's very political malleable?
No. So here's I would say that I don't think he sees himself as politically malleable like that. I think he sees himself as as the Chief Justice, the first among equals on the Supreme Court, that he's trying to protect the legitimacy, the integrity of the Supreme Court. The problem with what this person did by leaking out this opinion is they used all their ammunition already. They blew up. It was like a suicide bomber, right? They blew up in front of the Supreme Court politically, and at that point, what is there to preserve? They've already caused this great damage to the legitimacy, to the independence of the Supreme Court by doing this, and so now you have to rebuild that. And I think what the court needs to do is immediately issue the opinion reversing Roe and Casey, even if it's a per curiam opinion saying this is what we're going to do, the opinions will follow, or issue Justice Alito's majority opinion and say that the concurring and dissenting opinions will follow. There's precedent for doing that. It's a good way to show the world that you're not going to be able to manipulate the Supreme Court. You're not going to be able to threaten and cow justices on the Supreme Court. And when you try to do it, the opposite effect actually happens. Well,
we've got a whopping 1 minute, 30 seconds left. And what did you think of the opinion? Were you up last night?
Justice... Yeah, I read it. Justice Alito's draft opinion is brilliant. He's incredibly smart. What's good about Justice Alito is he does not give a damn about public opinion, and nor should he. As Supreme Court justices, they have lifetime tenure. They have pay protection. They're intentionally insulated from public opinion from our founders because their job is to protect minority rights, is to protect all of us. It gives us all equal protection of the law, all due process of the law, even the unpopular among us, especially the unpopular among us. So he doesn't give a damn what the polls say or what the American people think. And so he's the perfect person to draft this opinion.
But the question is, will Republican senators have the same reaction? That is those guys are just so incredibly cowardly.
I saw Susan Collins and Lisa
There you
Murkowski
go.
put out their statements today accusing Justice Gorsuch and Justice Kavanaugh of somehow lying to them during the confirmation process. I would tell, I called them the Cupcake Caucus. When I ran the Senate Judiciary Committee nomination process, I called them the Cupcake Caucus. I would tell them to just pipe down, ladies. The Supreme Court nominees can't trade their votes on future court cases for your confirmation vote. That's unethical, so just pipe down.
Oh, he's done plenty for them, believe me. I mean, that one decision on, never mind. Never mind, because you know what? Then that's going to get us into another conversation. I wanted to make sure that we kept on this one, and I appreciate your input, Mike Davis, Article 3 Project, and I really appreciate your insight after working with Justice Gorsuch as a clerk inside the U.S. Supreme Court and giving us some insight on what happened there. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.